and deepened pre-existing inequalities, with a surge of violence against women, women being disproportionately affected by unemployment and gaps in education, more so than boys and men, and with unpaid work increasing, etc. And today the picture remains bleak and patchy. According to the UN, at the current rate of progress, it could take up to 286 years to close gaps in women's legal protection and remove discriminatory laws, 140 years for women to be represented equally in positions of power and leadership in the workplace, and 47 years in parliaments. So let me ask you, are we going to wait that long for half of humanity to gain equal rights and opportunities? And faced with a huge task ahead, where do we focus our efforts? So to discuss this very, very important topic, I am delighted to welcome Lazat Ramanadzova, who is Deputy Chair of the National Commission of Kazakhstan. Please give her a warm welcome. And I'd also like to welcome Liliana Paliovici, who is Special Representative of the OSCE and Chairperson in Office on Gender. Thank you so much for joining us, and please give all our participants a very warm welcome. We're also joined today by Michaela Freiberg-Story. Michaela is UN Resident Coordinator at the Office of the United Nations in the Republic of Kazakhstan. Thank you so much for being with us today. And Robert Parker, who is the Trade Team Leader for the Economic Development Office at USAID Central Asia. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you. Now, Ms. Ramadzanova, over to you.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to greet all the speakers and guests joining us today. Special thanks to our speaker from the OSCE, the United Nations, European Union, and US Agency for International Development. We would like to express our appreciation for your dedicated work under the international global initiatives programs aimed at advancing the agenda of women's leaderships worldwide. Kazakhstan has demonstrated its strong commitment to promoting gender equality and empowering women through various initiatives and institutions. As one of the first Central Asian countries to establish a national entity dedicated to advancing gender equality, the National Commission on Women Affairs and Family Demographic Policy under the President. Kazakhstan has laid a solid foundation for driving positive change. Women's entrepreneurship is one of the core directions through which more women gain prominent leadership roles in business sector. Today, more than 40% businesses in Kazakhstan are headed by women. One significant achievement in promoting women's entrepreneurship is the establishment of 20 centers for development of women's entrepreneurship across all regions of Kazakhstan. The initiatives is a result of collaboration between Ministry of National Economy, the National Commission on Women Affairs and Family and Demographic Policy, with National Chamber of Entrepreneurs Atamikian, with support from the Asian Development Bank and United Nations Development Program in Kazakhstan. These centers play a crucial role in providing support to women entrepreneurs by ensuring equal access to projects financing, organizing educational seminars and events, and offering assistance in implementing business projects. By providing these resources and opportunities, Kazakhstan is working towards empowering women to succeed in the business world. Recognizing this, President Tokayev included amendments mandating a 30% quota for women and youth in parliament, effectively addressing the political gender gap. Developing women's leadership in one of the core priorities in our policy. To support the realization of these targets, the Samruk Kazna Fund has taken proactive steps by implementing a modular training program called Gender Equality. This program was developed in response to instruction of the President of Kazakhstan. Looking ahead, the targets for 2030 is even more ambitious, with goal of achievement a 30% representation of women in these leadership roles. Kazakhstan has positioned itself as a responsible participant in gender initiatives led by international organizations, including one of the key driving forces to see more in seniorships and decision-making roles. For instance, we are grateful to our participants with the OSCE under the realization of the projects on promoting women's economic empowerment in the energy sector, aimed to help young Central Asian women to understand the wealth and career opportunities that exist, build their confidence in the energy transition. The partnership with the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development in terms of financing and advisory support for women businesses is instrumental in promoting women's leadership and empowerment. The EBRD's Women in Business program, with special credit lines, plays a significant role in the endeavor. We have taken a significant steps forward by establishing a partnership with UN Women, working towards gender equality across many directions. We are happy to work with the US State Department's Academy for Women Entrepreneurship. The program that creates new opportunities for women from South Kazakhstan in close collaboration with private sector leaders Coca-Cola and Chevron. The EU-Kazakhstan Enhanced Partnership and Cooperation Agreement aims to strengthen cooperation in 29 key policy areas, including gender equality. Regional EU Central Asia strategy stresses gender equality and women's empowerment as fields of cooperation. Overall, I would like to express my gratitude to all the participants for their dedication to advancing women's leadership and supporting international global initiatives. Together, we can create a world where women have equal opportunities to lead and contribute to the development and progress of our societies. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramanazova. And thank you for sharing some of the initiatives in place here in Kazakhstan to help close the political gender gap. And I know that's something that you have been working on very closely and for years, Liliana Paliovici. So thank you very much for joining us here. Now, Liliana, you are a former member of parliament and you served as a deputy speaker of parliament in the Republic of Moldova. You're very active in promoting participative democracy, advancing policies in the field of human rights and gender equality, good governance and civil society development. And often when we think about women's leadership, we often think about women in the field of the economy. in the corporate world, for instance, in business. But really, the first and most crucial step is to make sure that there is more women's representation in the political field in order to involve women in decision-making and create the right, the favorable regulatory and legislative framework for women to blossom. Your thoughts?
Honorable audience, good morning. Dear Charlotte, thank you for your question and thank you for inviting me to speak on this issue that is so close to my heart and an issue, a cause in which I believe and which I fight for, because from my point of view, the successful path to prosperity of all societies is based on equitable opportunities that society is offering to both women and men. We cannot build democracy, strong and resilient society if more than 50% of that society will feel discriminated. So my call today to you is just to fight for our rights and not to fight alone, but to make sure that our cause is supported. And I asked Charlotte, what session was here in this room before our session? It was a session on the impact of geopolitical tensions at the global level. And I came yearly, and here there were 5 or 10 women in this room, and the rest were men. This means that they are more interested about tensions that are or conflicts that are happening in the world. No, we are interested too, but the general perception is that women are mostly interested about the education, social issue, social protection, and less involved in discussion. My call to you today, be brave. Come to discuss, come to the table to discuss all issues, because everything is affecting us. Everything is affecting our well-being. And if we want to be prosperous, we have to be there where the decisions are taken. So I have to say that it's not easy to be women in politics. I have to say this from my personal perspective. I was in politics about 8 years, and I know what means when important issues are discussed, and even if you have an important position in the institution, sometimes people are trying to forget that you are there. You should not let to be intimidated, to be active, and to ask for your place at the table. This will bring the change that we are expecting to happen in our societies. We may come to the point of equal representation of women and men, but we may come to this point at the moment when governmental institutions will help us. For this, we need political will. For this, we need to advocate more with politicians to enhance the legislation and to support our initiatives. You know, changes are not coming by themselves. Automatically, we have to work for these changes, and we have to invite men and convince them that we are equal partners and we are good professionals prepared to come with added value to the decisions that are taken by national parliaments and national governments. So, the organization that I am representing, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, has one of its priority promotion of women participation in decision making in all areas of life, including in peace building and negotiations. So we are investing, we are implementing diverse programs to build capacities of women to be more influential in decision making. We are considering that if women are absent from the process of taking of this decision, the decision taking will never represent their interest and will never reflect the right solutions to the issues that women are facing. Yes, it's true that in the last 20 years, countries in the world achieved some progresses in increasing women participation, but we are far away from the equality and equitable opportunities for this participation. Charlotte, you could stop me if I am speaking too much. I told from the beginning that this is the issue which, a cause in which I believe. And I am inviting you just to have a reflection what is happening in the parliaments in our countries. you'll see that more than 75% of seats are taken by men. With some small exceptions, we have countries that have 40%, 55% of seats taken by women, or 55% of women MPs. But majority of countries have between 20, 25, and there are even less, 10, 12, 18%. So I invite you to reflect what is happening at the moment when women are absent from these processes. For instance, to illustrate this point, consider the absence of women when the decisions are taken related to development and financing of the educational system. Women are representing there in this system over 60% of employees of the system and over half of the beneficiaries of these systems. How could you consider that the decision will reflect in the right way the specific needs of women that are working or are benefiting from this system? You cannot just avoid involving women in taking this decision. When we are speaking about the process of taking decisions concerning infrastructure investment, such as drinking water and sanitation, these for sure have to have women there, because women bear the caregiving responsibilities for members of the family, responsibilities imposed by the stereotypes, gender stereotypes of societies in which we are living. So we have to be there. When we are speaking about decision focused on mitigation of climate changes, women are so affected by different climate changes and natural calamities. So they're affected by floods, droughts, and they are disproportionately affected. So we have to identify specific solutions. And you may have this to be sure that these solutions are right when you are speaking with those who have to benefit of this and when you are inviting these people to vote for this solution. Even more, imagine that women, when women are absent from the process of taking the decision, parliaments are voting laws against the reproductive health of women. We know experiences of countries that voted law forbidding abortion and many other issues important. So could you imagine a parliament that will have half of members of the parliament men and half members of parliament women? Could such a parliament vote for against the reproductive health rights of women? I consider that no. From my point of view, these are very clear arguments why we have to be there, why we have to be actively involved, and why we have to be vocal. We are well prepared, we are good professionals. Now we have to trust much more in our competencies and skills and to run for public offices.
Yes, and more on that later. It's very hard to interrupt indeed because it's such an impassionate speech. Thank you very much. But I'd like to move over to Michaela Freiberg's story. Michaela, I'm sure that what you've heard so far really resonates with your action. But you are resident coordinator here, and what does it mean exactly? It means that you are the highest ranking representative of the UN development system at the country level, and you report directly to the UN Secretary General. And female leadership and empowerment, to remind the audience, is not just one of the UN SDGs, number 5, if I remember correctly, but it's also essential to help advance all the other SDGs.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And let me just start by thanking the Astana International Forum for having this session and for allowing us the opportunity to speak about peace, development, and security with this clear focus on gender issues. And I also like to thank all of you for coming. And I especially would like to thank all the men in the room for coming to this session, because that is what we need. We need he for she We need men who engage. And I think this for me is a key issue. We then need to say, why do we need that and how do we need that? And I think what you were picking up here, Liliana, a number of those sort of very comprehensive issues that you raised is what we need to look at. When we live in a world where the most dangerous place for a woman is her home, we ask ourselves, why didn't the women in this room go to the dialogue on global peace and security? And we ask ourselves, why did the men go to that one and not this one? I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, but I think we have to ask these questions. When we have 800 women and girls dying every day due to pregnancy and childbirth-related issues, we know that getting pregnant is one of the most dangerous things that a woman can do. What's wrong with our health systems when that's the situation? Why is not every pregnancy wanted and every delivery safe? When we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, and for us as the UN development system, that's what drives us. There's 17 of them, and number 5, as you say, Charlotta, is the one that focuses on gender equality specifically. But what we do as the UN very, very clearly, and which you also raised all those different issues on, Liliana, is the fact to make sure that let's not talk about gender equality and empowering women only in one session. Let's make sure that we ask the question whenever we make the policy decisions all the time. And I heard very clearly yesterday in the plenary session the commitment to gender equality, not only from President Tokayev, but also from the other speakers. But let's continue that dialogue, because when we have the political will and we make decisions on education, on defense budgets, on health budgets, on whatever it is, let's ask ourselves, how is this going to impact and affect the men and the boys? How is it going to impact the women and the girls? Let's make sure that our policies are human-centered, and we will automatically come to financing, having what we call a gender budgeting, understanding what it means to put our resources where our mouth is. And finally, just on this one, not to take the time, I think what is absolutely essential for us is to make sure that when we are now moving into the SDG summit that we heard the President and the Secretary General talk about yesterday as well, and the SDG summit in September will be where all the world's leaders will come together, hopefully all the leaders will show up, of the 193 countries that have signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals, leading up to the anniversary of the Universal Declaration for Human Rights later on in the year. Let's make sure that we recognize that women's rights are human rights. Maybe it's time to, sometime in the future, maybe my dream is that we're not going to have the sessions focusing on women specifically, but we're going to be able to say, how is this looking at the different groups in society? Because that's what we need. We need to have a society that makes the most out of the population they have and provide for the population it has. Imagine a country that would only use 50% of its potential brain capacity. I'm sorry, it's a bit of a loss, right? And when we need to find those economic arguments, and we have them, but we are heading in a wrong direction because it comes down to human rights. So for us, the Sustainable Development Goal number 5 is key, because we know that investing in Sustainable Development Goal number 5 on gender equality will unlock the potential to deliver on the other 12. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michaela. It's hard to hear that the most dangerous place for a woman in this world is home. And I hope everyone here is reflecting on it and realizing that it's also up to us women to stand up for ourselves and change situations with the support of the various programs and initiatives in place, notably. But Michaela, very quickly, a follow-up question here. We've heard from both Liliana, of course, here, and also Ms. Ramanadzova, how important it is to close the political gender gap. I know it's important to address the basics as well, and we'll discuss it a little bit further later on. But you actually have years of experience in the conflict solving and peacekeeping arena. So what are your thoughts on women in the political arena or field?
Well, I think, specifically when it comes to peacekeeping, I'd actually like to underline the importance that Kazakhstan has put on peacekeeping and the strong contribution that Kazakhstan has made to UN peacekeeping over the years. And I'd also like to credit the National Action Plan on UN Security Council Resolution 1325 that Kazakhstan has developed as the first country in Central Asia to do so. And this is part of ensuring that women are more active in and around peace negotiations and in and around the field of security. If you have female peacekeepers, and now I'm talking about those in uniform, if you have female peacekeepers, you will be more successful in your military operations because you will be able to speak with all of the populations. You will not do that if you purely have male soldiers. You will also be more reflective of the society that you come from. But in order to do that, you also need to make sure that you have women in your security forces at home. And that will also allow you to be more reflective of the society you serve at home. Because don't forget that security is a service provision to the citizens. No one should be afraid when they see their police officers, whether they're men or women. We should all feel that these are service providers, just like doctors or teachers or anyone else. They're serving the citizens. And I think for me, this is a key important mind shift to have. I spent 10 years in a peacekeeping mission as a civilian. And I think what was very clear there was that there was a limited engagement of women in the political negotiations because it focused on the political representatives, and they were, as you rightly point out, predominantly men. So when we talk about ensuring long-term peace and security, it needs to be anchored in society, and that society needs to be reflective of the population. It's big words, but everything of this hangs together. So it's not really possible to say, we're going to put a lot of emphasis on women in this sector, but not in that sector. We're going to do women in peace and security, but, not there. Because like everything, it's only one society. And that's why we need to make sure that we look at these issues holistically when we engage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, Robert Parker, for USAID and many others who work in the development community, empowering women is an important goal because it leads to tangible benefits in terms of socioeconomics. So tell us about your rationale and your strategy to help further and advance women's leadership.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me to speak today. Really excited to be up here with these dynamic women and one of the men in the room. And there should be more.
We wish there were more.
Yes, there should be more. So we, in the development community, we do take it as a given that empowering women is an important goal, but I wanted to look up a few of these economic advantages that we spoke of. So I went out and found some numbers. So for instance, you've probably heard of the consulting company McKinsey. Back in 2015, they found that just improving women's equality, not to the highest level in the world, but just to the best country in that country's particular region, would add 12 trillion with a T US dollars to global growth by 2025. Another study by the Peterson Institute of International Economics, they did an analysis of a global survey of 21,000 firms in 91 countries. They found a positive correlation between the percentage of women on a company's board and profitability. For profitable firms, a move from having no women leaders to 30% representation was associated with 15% increase in their net profit margin. So that's real money. And in 2019, the International Labor Organization released a report. They had surveyed 13,000 companies in 70 countries. And more than 57% of those responding said that gender diversity initiatives improved business outcomes. So, in other words, they tracked their gender diversity in their management and reported profit increases between 5 and 20%, with a majority seeing between 10 and 15%. So there are clear economic reasons beyond all of the other important reasons that we've heard for women's empowerment. Unfortunately, these studies were in the 2010s, and then COVID-19 struck. And as Charlotte said, the pandemic, it hit women harder in almost every way imaginable. And so we, in the community, we now even have to work even harder to make up some of that ground that we lost. And I yield the rest of my time to our other inspiring speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. That was inspiring enough, trust me. Michaela, I'd like to go back to the SDG Summit in September, because a lot is going to happen there in terms of commitments for women's empowerment. So what can we expect? And a second question, I guess, we've talked a lot about women's leadership, okay? So women who already have gained enough power, education, and drive to be able to have a say in the political arena. But what about addressing the basics, okay? Education, hygiene, access to reproductive rights, etc.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think so there's going to be this SDG summit in September, 18-19 September, that the Secretary General of the UN has called for. And the reason is that when we adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, in 2015, we said, okay, we're going to achieve these by 2030, by 2030. That's why it's called Agenda 2030. Now we're halfway. So there's going to be a summit in September to take stock of where we are. And the Secretary General, he will look very clearly for three commitments or three outcomes that he's looking at for here. He's going to be seeking a strong political declaration. And now you're thinking, really? A political declaration? Is that what we're going to get? Yes. And then all of us will keep our politician accountable for what they declared they were going to do. Because when you look at what's in the SDGs, it's all there. You know, if we talk about access to education for everyone, we need to think about how does this impact girls. So if you're a girl and you live in a village where there's no toilets in your school and you're going to get your first period when you're 12, how long are you going to continue to go to school during the days that you have your period? The World Bank made a study that in many places, girls miss more than 20% of their education because they are hygienically or psychologically uncomfortable to go to school when they have their period. And if you lose 20% out of school, how well are you going to do on the exams? How long will your parents continue to pay for your education if you're not performing as well as they hope you do? So we need to look at these kind of issues like making sure that schools have safe, appropriate, sex-divided toilets for boys and girls to keep girls in school, just as an example, you know. And this is what we need to do. We need to bring all of these big political words into realities on the ground. So the SDG Summit will look at a big political declaration, and is going to also create a fresh momentum when it comes to action plans at the country level. And to do this, to lead up, the Secretary General has identified sort of high impact initiative that he's talking about, related to energy, food system, jobs, digital, climate, environment, education, all of these things. But in every single one of those, there is a clear focus on gender. On top of that, he's looking at what he calls a cross-cutting issue, and that is to combat violence, sexual and gender-based violence. And I just want to say here, I don't know if we have anyone from the EU here, unfortunately Ambassador Hakala couldn't join us, but I just want to say that the EU and the UN have had the world's largest financial partnership to combat sexual and gender-based violence, called the Spotlight Initiative, for 500 million euros. And that has really led to an enormous difference. And here in Kazakhstan, we've led the regional such Spotlight Initiative for Central Asia. The point about combating sexual and gender-based violence is that we recognize that this is the key to unlock so many other issues related to women's and girls' empowerment. Whether we talk about youth empowerment, whether we talk about human rights, as long as we have the levels of sexual and gender-based violence, the lack of understanding, the dismissal of these issues as a universal problem to our development, to the development of the children of those women and men, to the lack of development for the sisters, for the mothers, their mothers' inability to continue to go to paid work when they are being beaten at home, this doesn't work. For the UN, this is the absolute fundamental key. And I really want to take this opportunity and thank the European Union for the partnership that we've had on the Spotlight Initiative. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Michaela. And listening to you and hearing about the urgency that we're facing right now to solve women's issues at the most basic level, I'm wondering when the next COP for women is going to take place and whether we should have one. Food for thought. Liliana, I wanted to go back to your action and your initiatives in place at the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe for women as peacekeepers and women in the political field. And you have launched a very interesting program in Moldova in order to help women build political skills, that's communication, confidence, etc. Can you tell us more about your action?
Yes, thank you. With great pleasure, I will do it. OSCE acknowledges the importance of women participation at all stages of conflict, in the prevention of conflicts, in resolution of conflicts, and also is important to have women involved also in post-conflict reconstructions. We consider that this is a main condition for a real democracy and real condition for human rights respect and for ensuring security in our society. We cannot speak about strong security of one state if citizens of this state is both men and women are feeling insecure. It doesn't matter, this is an economic insecurity, a social or a political, this is affecting in totality the security of the state. So the OSCE, which is an organization formed from 57 states, is working with these 57 states to come with the same approach when building the security of their states. So what our organization is doing through training programs, mentorships, and different platforms is providing capacity development for women to participate in this process. For instance, if coming to the example of the Republic of Moldova, you know that Moldova has a conflict, a frozen conflict on its territory, on the left bank of the Dnistru River. So we are interested to make sure to come as soon as possible to peace and to create the real conditions for human rights respect there. For this purpose, 11 working groups for negotiations were created, and members of these groups are women too. So with the support of OSCE, training was provided to women negotiators to better understand how to integrate the gender perspectives in the negotiation agenda. From the beginning, some members of the negotiations group asked, what kind of problems women may have when we're discussing banking sector, or when we are discussing the energetic issues connected with the energetical sectors? Yes, they have direct connection to women issues. If no light, if no gas, there are less conditions for living in that region, so they are directly affected. The schools will be closed, the hospital will be closed. This in totality is affecting their well-being in the region. So besides this, with a joint initiative, OSCE and UN Women was created or was supported the initiative of civil society organization to create a women advisory board. It's a board that is formed from NGOs working on gender dimension at grassroots, collecting the issues of women that are living in the region affected by the conflict, and preparing arguments in support and proposals of activities that should be done by authorities, and sending these issues, proposals to the negotiators. So this is a way in which shows how the NGOs and how women mediators, peace builders may contribute to the successful peace negotiations. Besides this, the OSCE launched in December 2021 a platform of, a networking platform for women leaders, which includes peace builders and mediators. This platform offers the possibility to women peace builders and mediators, which are at the beginning of their career, to have discussions and exchange of experiences with experienced negotiators, women that were involved in negotiations for peace agreements in different corners of the world. This is the best way how we may support women to get more skills to participate efficiently in negotiation for peace. Additional to this, OSCE is, through its institutions, is developing toolkits and different recommendations to the national governments how to train and to prepare women for participation in the negotiation processes and in conflict solving processes. Additionally, OSCE through ODIHR is working on enhancing the capacities of women MPs to be more influential and more visible in negotiations and conflict solving. So there are also tools provided to the national parliaments how to conduct the gender audits of the national parliaments and the other public institutions, how to create women MPs caucuses that will focus on promoting gender implementation of gender commitments of their countries. So we have so many opportunities for women. I am inviting you to follow the webpage of OSCE and to apply to all opportunities that we are offering to you, and then we'll be a very big team that will work together for the change that we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ileana. And it's not just that women make fantastic negotiators, as we all know here, of course, but it's also women, for their own interest and self-protection, to be involved in conflict solving and peacekeeping. Why? Because women are very vulnerable during conflicts, and in fact, sexual violence and rape are often used as tactics during the war to crush the enemy. And in fact, I understand you have a great scholarship program in place at the OSCE, and it's run by the Conflict Prevention Center. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, as I mentioned, there are different opportunities, including opportunities or this scholarship offered by these centers, and also we have the academy in Bishkek that is providing also so many opportunities for training for young women and men that want to be involved in negotiations and in peacekeeping. So it's important to have an initiative. And for your initiative, we will have solutions, how to help you to get involved in these processes. We are convinced that if we will have more women in building peace, in negotiation for peace, we will have the possibility to have a reduced level of violence against women, including domestic violence, which is a huge issue in many countries in the region. We will have the possibility to generate new opportunities for women, economic empowerment. We cannot speak about active and meaningful participation if we are not creating additional conditions for this participation. At the moment when women are paying is receiving almost 75% from the salary that the man is receiving for the same work done with the same level of professional education. So we have to understand that these are not equal and equitable opportunities for influencing the decision. So here the invitation is to come, to apply to our programs, to our scholarships. They are real, they are oriented to a public like you, and by benefiting from these scholarships and programs, you will you'll have the chance to meet nice trainers, nice people, which will be in the future, will invite you to be part of the team in fighting for peace and for a more resilient world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ileana. And women are paid about over 20% less than men across the world, not just at the same, well, with the same level of education, but for performing exactly the same job, okay? You are paid 20% less on average to do the same job as a man. Just wanted to point that out because I think it's important.
Yes, but if you will analyze this data in banking sector, you will find that women are paid even less than 75%. And these are not good figures. We have to think more about it and to have more actions done at the level of the governments.
Absolutely. Now, Robert, I believe you say that there's all sorts of initiatives and programs in place in order to help women hone business skills to do better in the workplace. Can you share some examples with us?
Yes, absolutely. And these problems that we just talked about, the lower salaries, the low rates of representation in leadership, that's exactly the types of things that our programs try to address. But even though I'm going to talk about USAID programs, it's important to realize we're all working together in the same fight to achieve the same goals. So, yeah, I mean, I looked at some of our programs, for instance, and we work in all 5 countries of the region. So this February, the U.S. Embassy in Ashgabat and the Sanli Bilim Education Center in Turkmenistan, they jointly launched the Digi Women Camp program that will empower women and girls by equipping them with coding skills, web development, mobile app development, back-end development, so that they can find jobs and careers in the IT sector. In 2022, the National Association of Businesswomen in Tajikistan and USAID, we implemented the Business Accelerator for Women and Youth project. And the main goal there was to help aspiring women with startups and young entrepreneurs to grow their businesses and enter new markets. This business accelerator for women and youth, it provided several programs to accelerate the development of their startups through training and mentoring, which is important, and financial and expert support. There's the Tumaris Tech program, which provided comprehensive support to women's entrepreneurial initiatives for the last 2 years, and the project led to 30 startups and 200 girls learning about IT. And this one was in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. So we work, again, over all the region. They had 2 hackathons where everyone tries to quickly hack some software, 2 waves of incubation for the companies, and acceleration programs for the women's startups. And this was actually recognized twice at the international level. They won the capacity building category at the World Summit on Information Society in 2022, and also 3rd place in Upskill and Reskill Program of the Year at the Women Tech Global Awards 2020. So if you allow me one more, there's this one called the Mentor Spark Women in IT education program in Central Asia. And that's to create a strong community where women can improve their professional skills and competencies to access new economic opportunities for career development. That helped 300 women in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. And they complete an education program, then they improve their professional competencies and master leadership skills in the areas of engineering, business analytics, product management, product testing, IT, and startups. And so, I mean, I just wanted to, those were just a few of the programs that USAID does, and it's just in the economic sphere, but I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Michaela, I think you'd like to follow up on this.
Yeah, I wanted to just come in on that because I really think you highlight something that is so important, and that is about women being computer and digital literate. Because we talk more and more about the digital age we live in, about, you know, whether we talk about trade, whether we talk for small and medium enterprises, whether we talk about e-health, whatever it is. And I think it's fair to recognize that still today, 3 billion people are still unconnected to the internet. And the majority of them are women and girls in developing countries. And in the least developed countries, only 19% of women and girls are on the internet. So when we talk about leave no one behind, as we say as the UN, that's like our motto, the SDGs, leave no one behind, we must see who are at risk of being left behind as we move forward in this digital world. And given that globally, girls and women only make up 1/3 of students in science and technology in the STEM field, and you know, like the USAID, we also work on these issues, and it's so important.
женщины будут позади. Поэтому мы должны привлекать больше женщин в этот